perfect information, the idea that the player has to know everything. How do we turn a card game into a game with perfect information? First, several criteria need to be followed when creating a game with perfect information. 1. There has to be no luck involved. 2. The initialize event has to be visible to the player. And 3. It has to be a sequential game. A first-person shooter, a live RPG game, or MMOs are generally not considered sequential. In a sequential game with perfect information, one of the two players must have a forced win or drawn position. Why? This is Zermelos' law and is the basis for how sequential games function, including backwards induction. We will get into these more later. I have linked all these studies in the description. However, not all sequential games are with perfect information. You see, poker, Uno, war, and many other card games are not perfect information because you cannot see the enemy deck. But what if that all changed? First, we'll use poker as our first game to make, the specific variant being Texas Hold'em, which coincidentally is also the most popular type of poker. In this version, 4 people battle off, each player having 2 cards. Usually these 2 cards would be randomly drawn and the player is not to show anyone their cards. Each round the players may match, raise, or fold, which I explained in my zero-sum game video you should watch. Matching is where they reach the bet. Raising is where they grow the bet. Folding is where they resign, allowing the other player to take all the chips in the pot. After placing the bets, in the end, each of the players' hands is valued with a specific value, like Yahtzee, with winning conditions such as royal flush, straight flush, 4 of a kind, and much more. Well, let's make the game. First, to make the poker game, I need a deck of cards. After downloading a free zip file for every card, I uploaded it into Unity. I then added a shuffle button to shuffle the cards satisfyingly. Next is to deal the cards. But since this game is with perfect information, any deals must be given to the player before. But in this case, it doesn't matter even though it's the initialization part. Because the players aren't starting any rounds yet, giving them random cards doesn't really affect the game process whatsoever. Then we need to plan out the rest of the game. According to Zermelos' law and backwards induction, we can trace the game from end to the front. If the game is finite and has perfect information, we will reach the starting point every single time. Games like chess do not fall into Zermelos' law because technically chess is infinite. However, we can apply this into our game so that we can make sure it's truly with perfect information. So that means from now on, we need to store every variable we will use for the next 5 cards in the middle. After storing this data, the next step is to make it all work. All I have to do is add some UI to tell the player what the next card is, and so on. Lastly, win conditions. There are many win conditions that I have mentioned before, and coding them took a bit more time than I'd like to admit. So yeah, the game is practically done. However, we need to take a look at the theory behind the game. When players look at each other's cards, they can match, raise, or fold, as we said before. However, since the player already knows the other player's cards, then the game is just luck and unplayable. For example, player A has a royal flush, and all the other players have lower tier cards. This is not playable as other players will not bet because they already know the outcome, which is a loss. I could see potential fixes such as making it partial information, where the player can only know one of the outcomes, or some of the hands, which would cause some fascinating strategies. This isn't the only game that works though. Uno, a popular card game, also works. Since the player has to hide their cards to maximize their chances of getting griefed or intentionally getting targeted by other players are more diminutive. To put this into perspective, let's say that player A only has 1 card left. However, the previous player has a +4. If the last player has no idea what the cards are, player A wins easily. But if player B, also known as the previous player, finds out about the card, then things can get tricky. The player B can use their +4 instead of saving it and intentionally make player A not win. This is the best strategy as there's usually 4 players in an Uno game or more. Since only one person has to win, the other player should prevent that one person from winning. Now instead of being full of luck, this game actually functions and is entirely playable. The dominant strategies have changed, however the fundamentals have not. Trying these weird things in games is really fun, so if you enjoyed, please help me by subscribing. That's it. Thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day. Bye.